Hey, everybody. Dave Lindbergh with another episode of THD Podcast coming to you from Hong Kong again, as always this year. And Simon, our co-host in Japan. How are you doing today, Simon?
Great, thanks, Dave. Beautiful sunny day, a bit of snow on the ground.
All right, cool. All right, and so our guest joined us today from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, John Bastianelli with Presonus. How are you doing over there, John?
I'm doing okay. There's no snow on the ground in Baton Rouge, but it's wet and muddy and kind of dreary today. But other than that, everything is good.
All right, and you're in your home studio there?
Yes, working from home. We're on lockdown because of the pandemic. And yeah, that is my home studio behind me. During the pandemic, I got the chance to redo my patch bay again. So I got everything organized. It's very organized right now. I just have to find the time to use and have fun with it. So,
all right. So yeah, I guess I've known you probably a little bit more than 10 years now, and
yep.
Your background is a lot in live sound and recording, and so we thought it'd be cool for our viewers to kind of hear about some different aspects related to live sound. One thing that's been scratching my head a little bit is how everything's evolved with digital processing in sound reinforcement, mixing consoles, digital wireless, control interfaces, all this kind of stuff. And, what we can see on the stage is kind of wedges have gone away. People have body packs with in-ear monitors a lot more often now. And so how is that, just as a general question, how is that working so everybody's playing on time? Like, how is everything syncing up? Is it all buffered and delay in the main console? How's this all coming together?
Okay, that is a really good question. And it's a problem. And what is the main problem that I'm finding in the market in general, and also the good news is, I get to test the equipment because I do play live. Well, not since the pandemic started.
Mm-hmm.
And we do use our own products, which are personal monitor. We have the ability to control our own mixes, and we use in-ears as well, wireless in-ears. And the biggest problem I see is that when you have all this digital equipment, everything is going through, of course, codecs, analog to digital conversion, being processed. And because there's so many products that have digital effects, for instance, if I'm a guitar player, which I'm not, I'm the saxophone player in the band I play in, but the guitar player, I think he has a fractal digital guitar processor, and it does amp simulation and effects. And he takes the output out of it, which is analog, and goes into a digital board. So you're adding group delay every time you basically go from analog to digital to analog to digital. So you have to add up the group delays of that. Then you add up your network delay, which we have network audio. We're using AVB. We also have Dante solutions. Mm-hmm. And then there are more associated delays with that. So you have to be really super careful about, adding up your group delays. I mean, the acceptable delay, give or take, in-ear monitors, for instance, I think once you start getting over, well, I'm a bit sensitive, but most people can tolerate, I would say, a total maximum of nothing above 10 milliseconds. But really, you want to be at 5, to be quite honest with you.
Are you noticing any younger players that are better to adapt with that?
Yeah, because they're used to it. A lot of them that are going out. I mean, their expectation is when I go play a live gig is that they're using in-ears. The ones that are actually going out and playing, more serious gigs, to be quite honest with you. But you kind of get accustomed to it. But by the same token, you'll see somebody will tell you, well, yeah, okay, you stand on a stage and then you hear a speaker across the room. It doesn't reach you for whatever, 10 milliseconds, 12 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big difference between that. It has to do with the way you perceive audio and the way you feel it and hear it. When you have this thing, actually I have a little earbud that's injected inside your ear. I mean, it's a completely different environment and in a different feeling. You have to get used to it. All right. You also, when you're playing in what I call a silent stage, is that you don't have the benefit of hearing or feeling, for instance, the kick drum, or the bass players have a really tough time playing with a drummer when they're using in-ears and everybody's completely silenced. I mean, like in the church market, for instance, they use electronic drums, or they use deadeners. They want to deaden the drums so they don't send out a lot of acoustic energy. So they want to keep it contained as much as possible. So they don't have the benefit of feeling it. I mean, there are third-party products out right now. There's a German company, I forgot, Lofel or something like that, that has basically, they have devices that you can wear, haptics, basically, that'll produce vibrations that you can perceive as sort of like feeling some air moving, you know what I mean? So you could kind of feel the groove, that sort of thing. So there is some things to get over as far as, getting used to that environment. I know personally, when I first started using in-ears, for instance, I had to deal with a slight delay directly inside my ears. And whenever I play a solo, though, I would literally take out one of the ears, or even both in some cases, because there was some ambient sound and I felt more comfortable playing in that environment as opposed to playing inside your ears. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that hearing the music come to you with in-ears directly injected into your ear canals, you're much more sensitive to the delay that audio is reaching you later. So that's something that takes a bit of getting used to. But the flip side of that is, and something our company is sort of creating, is an ecosystem that once you go into the digital domain, you have a complete solution all the way out to the speaker. So, yeah. I mean, obviously we're using, for our own products, we're using AVB network protocol to send audio to speakers, to digital mixers, to stage boxes, to personal monitors. And basically, if you take, for instance, a spit-if out of your guitar pedal, right? At least you're not going through a converter. We're getting that digitally onto our network, and then it gets processed with DSP on the board, whatever effects you want to add, et cetera, et cetera. And then the only thing you really have to deal with are the sort of the network delays that are associated, but they're in the sub 1 millisecond, really. So it's definitely the future for it, for sure. So
there's a couple of different stages of delay that you're talking about. One is when the musician's playing their music and getting their own monitor signal back. That's a problematic delay, right? And then the delay between each musician have to sync up, but then the final delivery to the audience doesn't matter so much. Would that be fair to say?
Well, that's a whole nother thing. Actually, the delay problem is, the delay problem really centers around going from analog to digital to analog to digital. And a lot of products are just slow. They don't put faster converters in it the way they design them. So you add up all of those group delays, and before you even, like if you're going to digital wireless, for instance, okay, Dave, you know a little bit about that, but if you go digital wireless is problematic. It's not really problematic, but it does add delay. I think the fastest you can expect digital wireless post the converter is maybe around 4 milliseconds, 5 milliseconds. Now you add group delay on top of that and maybe you're easily going to be over 10 milliseconds. So what I mean is, like, if I play my guitar, now I'm not hearing it because I'm not plugged into an amp. I'm going direct into my effects pedal. It's going out of my effects pedal, right? It's going into a digital mixer. By the time I hear what I'm playing and I'm trying to lock in with the time, it's in my ears. It's reaching my ears, 10 milliseconds later. You can get used to it, but it really is a weird kind of feeling. You have to get used to it. It's especially for bass players, man. If you're hearing drums in your ears 10 milliseconds late and trying to lock in, it's kind of readapting how to feel the groove and locking in with the rest of the musicians. So yeah, it is a problem. Now, is it a huge problem? No. Because I'll tell you straight up, any musician will tell you this too. Anybody performing live on stage, the fact that you got rid of all those wedges, the fact that you can dial in your own personal mix. I mean, on this thing, when I play a gig, and pretty much it's a norm now, wirelessly, I can control my cue mix in my ears. I can hear what I want to hear, how I want to hear it.
What's
and
the
I can
cue
control
mix?
the volume. The cue mix is my own personal mix. So in other words, like for instance, our products, we have, everything from a 16 channel digital all the way up to a 64 channel digital mixer. And they have, we have, let's see, on the largest one, we have up to, it depends how you configure it, up to 16 cue mixes. That means those are separate mixes aside from the front of house mix. Mm-hmm. So you have the main mix and then you have sub mixes, right? Mm-hmm. And of those sub mixes, I can give, for instance, you one mix, and I could give Dave another mix. And what I mean by that is I say, okay, here you are. I hand you an iPad, or you log in and I give you permissions, and you could open up your personal mix. And then you have a series of faders, and you could basically control and push up. If you want to hear the drums louder, you push the drums up louder. If you want to hear yourself louder, it's great for a singer because singers always want to hear themselves louder than anybody else. So it gives you complete control over everything. So now that doesn't mean there are people that don't want to control this stuff themselves because it's beyond their technical abilities, or they just get daunted by it. I don't want to deal with it, but that's fine because the front of house engineer can do it, or someone else can do it, or the monitor mixer can do it. But it's pretty much the norm now for live sound is that you have the ability to control your own mix. And if you have a phone or you have an iPad or you have an Android phone, you can do that. So Now you asked me about DSP and delay and DSP processing and FIR filterings and things like that. We do all of that in live sound as far as tuning the speakers and also tuning the room. So, I mean, the anomalies that happen in a live environment are really hostile acoustically, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you solve those problems? Now, I could tell you straight up, I'm old enough to remember going to a concert and seeing Voice of the Theaters to a rock concert completely like stacked to the roof in a coliseum or an arena, right? Now, there was no time delay. There was just pure loud, distorted speakers. More is better. But what ultimately happened is you had all kinds of just crazy standing waves. You had all kinds of phase cancellation. The reason why your ears were bleeding out of that concert is because that distortion just wreaked havoc on your ear canals, and your ears would ring for days. Well, being a musician in that environment was just absolutely horrible because that's why all those musicians went deaf. So now, today, if you go to see whatever, fill in the blank of your favorite band, everything sounds gorgeous. I mean, you have just gigantic line arrays that are all time aligned and filtered. So literally the sound reaches the audience wherever you are at the same time. Now, is it perfect? No, but it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. Because if music hits you or sound hits you at different times, your ear perceives that as total chaos and distortion. That's why your ears ring. So, I mean, I could play you a completely clean sound, whether it be an oscillator or music. And if it's completely clean and there's no reflections on the wall, you could tolerate a lot higher volumes in your ears. So that's what they try to do. And we do it as well with our live sound products, by processing the audio also going out to the audience.
Just got kind of maybe a sidetrack topic. With these multi-purpose sports stadiums, I mean, they used to be like, tin cans and were just brutal for reflection. Have they improved besides hosting hockey and basketball? Have they put any thought into making it better for live sound, or you're just solving that all in digital domain?
Well, sometimes you have no choice but to try to solve it. I mean, right down the street, we have one of our high-end systems in a Catholic church here, and it's a brand new Catholic church. They, of course, went way over budget, and so we were lucky enough to get the contractor who did the install in that location to talk to the architect And because they went over budget, they were supposed to spend a bucket load of money on acoustics. And that got thrown over the wall because they said, well, we're not going to spend money on that. We have to finish, whatever the entranceway or whatever it was. But my point is that you'll find that even in new buildings that are being built, they don't really want to spend the money on that. Now, big arenas and things, yeah, I mean, I've heard of situations where they have. I've never been in a situation where I heard that our products got into a place where they actually got the contractor to spend money. Some churches actually did do some minor acoustic improvements in an existing space. Yeah. But by and large, it's difficult. I mean, there was a gigantic club that had a bowling alley on the 4th floor downtown here. And the entrepreneur that came in and invested in it, he had all intentions to acoustically treat his club, and he put our sound system in there, and it's probably the worst acoustic environment I ever heard in my life. It just awful. It's glass and metal and hardwood, and you can't hear anything. I played that room, and it was the most. I just said I'd never want to play here again, because even with in-ears and the audio would come out of the front of house speakers and bounce everywhere, and it would come back at you. You couldn't hear anything. It was awful. So anyway, he heard about what it was going to cost. It was going to be about $200,000 to treat his room. And he just said, forget it. I'm not going to put that investment in that. That's just too much money. So you try to fix as much as possible with DSP. Like the Catholic Church, for instance, is it perfect? No, it's far from it. If you turn the DSP off that's doing the room tuning, it does sound awful. When you put it on, it sounds tolerable. Let me put it to you that way. But, there's only so much you can do. But it's really incredible what they can do, for instance, in outdoor arenas, even in gigantic, stadiums. It blows me away. I mean, who did I hear? I saw at the New Orleans, what is it? The Smoothie Center, which is that big coliseum in New Orleans. I heard a number of years ago, it was, I think, Elton John, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I was actually surprised that it was tolerable, the sound. It really was good. They did a great job. And it was sort of like an arena style, and they had line arrays, all around the stage. The stage was like literally in the middle. Now, I could tell you they're probably not running stereo. They're probably definitely running mono. I can't imagine how they'd be able to run stereo in an environment like that. But they were able to keep the reflections to a minimum. So, and I did get up during the show and walk around because I was curious to see how things sounded. So, I mean, the technology is amazing what they can do. Obviously, the ultimate is when you have just a wonderful acoustic environment, and then you also have a wonderful sound system. And I, of course, heard those installs, and yeah, I mean, they just sound wonderful, no question about it.
I'm curious about this point. So used to be we still have it. You buy like a home audio thing, and it comes with a few DSP settings. You might have like stadium or concert hall, and it just introduces echo. But that's actually the objective of a live sound system is something completely different than that. Could you tell us a bit more about ultimately what would be the perfect live sound environment setup net result?
Oh my gosh. Well, it depends upon what your budget. I'm talking about extremely high end or higher end.
I'm saying like this, do you want to end up with a sound that is like a very personal environment with a singer?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
No microphone delivery, or do you want to end up with some other type of effect, let's say?
Okay, so I see what you're asking. Well, I'm going to be straight up. When you're talking about commercial sound, whether it be in a house of worship, whether it be in an arena, whether it be in a club or even a smaller club, what you want to do is you want to make it sound, you want to get rid of the anomalies, the problems in the room. You want to tame the room. So you reduce reflections. It's the reason why in a recording studio, you have acoustic treatment. When you don't have the benefits of acoustic treatment, the only way to really correct it is with DSP. So, they have, like, for instance, there's a company called Smart. We work with Smart as well. That's it'll measure the anomalies in the room, and it does correction. through delays and filtering and things like that. So you're correcting for it. You could only, like I said, you can only correct so much, but you try to get it as good as possible. So in other words, you're not trying to create another environment in a big arena, because you're trying to basically fix the problem with an arena, which is reflections for days that really destroy the sound,
Right.
Now, if you're talking about creating different environments, that's more in the studio or post-production, which we are big into as well, which we do have many things for that. And that would be something where I'm mixing an artist that I recorded in the studio or recorded in multiple different places. In this day and age, a lot of people are doing that, myself included. You bring it all together. And that's actually very important because like, for instance, a project I'm working on right now, the band can't record, and we have a recording studio in our office. It's a full-fledged recording studio designed by Walter Stork Design Group up in New York. Anyway, we can't cut basic tracks. We can't have the band playing together as one, band. We lose the ability of having sort of it's a funk band. We play, like R&B funk music. So you don't have the benefit of that. So what do you have to do? Each musician is recording themselves in their little room, like I have behind me right here.
Yeah.
So then you put all of those pieces together, and then you say, well, I really want it to sound like the horn players or the whole band is playing in a club. Well, then in that case, you do have, or we have a number of different ways to achieve that, to recreate that environment. And it's way more than sort of like reverb. It's actually acoustic modeling of environments through impulse responses. There's also even more involved DSP to recreate environments, to make instruments sound like, everything from even retuning instruments, making them play more in tune and also to make them sound like they were recorded in the same place. So in that case, that's more of a post-production. It's not to say that you don't add those type of things in a live environment, which you do. And that's part of the mixing board. And we have a suite of effects. We have things to add delay. We'll add delay to make a singer sound, richer. We'll add reverb to their voice to sound richer. But that's to enhance their voice or their instrument. But again, I look at, and by the way, that is DSP, but the application is different. That's to enhance the instrument or the voice, but we also use DSP to do room correction. So anytime people say PA, DSP, I immediately think room correction.
Is there effects modules to like simulate different mics as well? So you're in a certain room with a certain reverb, but
yes,
a lot of guys like a certain mic pickup on their guitar string, and then like an internal pickup as well. And
that's called mic modeling. There are a number of companies that do it. We do it. We just released updates to our modeling plugin, which basically simulates. Actually, it doesn't simulate. It's actually the exact circuits. We have DSP engineers in our office in Hamburg, Germany, that models the anomalies in Marshall amplifiers, for instance. And actually, the Marshall amp model that we used is basically the guitar player who's our head of sales. He's got this old Marshall amp, and it's down to the circuit level, but it's also everything from voltage sag. If you dig into it, because there's anomalies with tubes, if you really hit it hard, you'll find that the voltage drops and you kind of get a certain sound. You can recreate that completely digitally.
Yeah.
And that'll work for live and also in the studio.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I think I saw a documentary on the Roland 808 the other day. And actually the distortion that Japanese dude was getting was based on some faulty transistors that he was able to source because he didn't have the budget to buy the premium ones. So he found out that they were putting factory seconds in a bin. And then when they discontinued selling those factory seconds, he couldn't replicate that sound anymore.
Oh, yeah. That happens a lot. You'd be surprised how sort of the mistakes become the become the norm or part of the sound, you know? Yeah, it's actually, we have in our software that runs on our mixers and also in our digital audio workstation, Studio One. We have the ability to model crosstalk in consoles. Our mixer that's in the software, it actually can reproduce anomalies in consoles. So, I mean, part of the sound of an analog console, whether it be live or studio, are the anomalies. Why do people like Neve consoles so much? Mm-hmm. Because it's actually the high frequency distortion, in a sense, that creates what people call that sort of sparkle, that sound quality of that. You know, it's funny. I watched a documentary again, that one of my buddies is actually in. He passed away in March, but he was a producer, and he's in the movie because I used to work with him at his studio, which was next door to a very famous studio in LA called Sound City.
Yeah.
And do you ever hear of Sound City? It's a great documentary, by the way.
Like Dave Grohl, and he talks about his first time being able to get access to the Nev console.
Well, that's right. He owns that console now, but that is like, now this is quite interesting because that movie talks about something that is an anomaly, because that room, that Sound City, where they recorded, broke every rule acoustically. But for some reason, because it was a rectangular room and it was mostly cinder blocks, and they kind of hung some stuff up to deaden the sound, but it didn't have a professional like sound person come in and design the room with bass traps, etc. But for some reason, when they put the drum set in the middle of the room, it just had this incredible sound. And I'm sure part of that, or a good part of it, were the anomalies in the room. But for some reason, it sounded great. And then in combination, that Neve console was one of the earlier Neves, and it had a certain sound like no other Neve. And it just made everything sound more lively and bigger than life. And all of that has to do with the circuitry. Now, one of the beautiful things about, you know, analog circuitry, and it's also kind of a double-edged sword in a way, because you could go and hear a beautiful Neve console in one room and go hear the same exact console in another room in the old days, and they'll sound different. Now, part of it may be the acoustics, but a good part of it was also, maybe it's the way, like you said, the components that they put in at that time. You never know. It's so all of those things, although I will tell you, when you're spending that kind of money on a console, they were pretty standardized with the components, but still they would sound different. And I remember SSL was not as much, but definitely I worked on a lot of SSLs back in the day. But if you look, like for instance, plugins and modeling those consoles is extremely popular now, not only in the studio, but also live. I mean, we have the ability to say, okay, you want the sound like this, you can do it. I mean, so now what does that mean? When people say, I want it to sound like a Neve, it's always like, I want it to sound bigger than life. It's why people like to use tube products. They say, well, the tubes are warmer. I want to warm up my voice more, so I use tube products. And you asked me about mic modeling. They have a lot of that now. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you. A lot of the stuff that's out there is gimmicky. And a lot of the stuff, they'll say it's something, and they're really not doing it, or they're doing a portion of it. Or they're saying they're modeling an amplifier, and all they're doing is basically doing impulse responses of the cabinet of the amplifier. You know, it's just, it really depends. But it all boils down to, if it sounds good to you and it works for you, it works as far as I'm concerned, you know. Opinions are like, you know what, everybody has them. Everybody has their opinions. And, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, I could be an audio snob, but, you know, who cares? Who cares about my opinion? If everybody likes it, that's good. It's all good. So,
yeah, I think that's the fun part of the industry, is there's really no right answer.
But I will tell you, because you touched on DSP, in our company, I'm really excited because we've taken our upper end DSP technology and what that enables you to do. And we just released a USB microphone, which I have here.
All right.
And basically what this is also our microphone. This is a broadcast mic we just came out with. But anyway, but our new microphone is a standard like USB mic, like you would, you know, decent sounding USB mic. But what we put inside of it is a digital mixer and digital signal processing. So what does that mean? Well, basically what it means is that I could make my voice sound any way I want and save it as a preset and recall it anytime I want. So what does that mean for like someone who's a gamer, for instance? Well, if I want my voice to sound like Darth Vader, I just hit a button. If I want to basically, simulate the proximity effect, so I sound more like a radio announcer, I can do that very easily through presets and recall them instantly. It also has a virtual mixer built inside of it for loopback. So when I plug it into the computer, I can do 2 interviews on Skype and Zoom, and then I could live stream it on Twitch. And I could mix everybody together on the same computer because it exposes itself, and it's all done in firmware, not a virtual driver. So it's exactly the same experience whether I use it on Mac or PC. So it's incredible, but our upper end technology allowed us to push that down and solve a lot of problems. Now, if I told people this that are, that want to do a podcast, they'll be like, I don't know what any of that means. I don't care about that. But it's all preset driven. You want to sound like this, you click, 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 click. You dial it in on the software, or you have a preset button. I keep on hitting this. I get different sounds, So it's kind of exciting in a way. Believe it or not, the lower end market to me is more exciting than the upper end market because it's more challenging because your price points are really, really more aggressive. And you have to really figure out ways to basically pay for a lot of the stuff that's under the hood. So you have to be really creative about your firmware programming. You have to be efficient with your code, and then also, creative about manufacturing and things like that. So anyway.
Yeah, so a couple of things there. Well, the manufacturing is the reason that Simon and I are in Asia, but also like all this, broadcasting stuff that's more for the consumer has gone on a runner this year. So beyond the mic stuff, what other kind of products is maybe Presonus bringing, and what are people buying for their homecast now?
Well, that's where our business completely exploded because of the pandemic. Our live sound business slowed down, but not as bad as, because we were quick to react to what happened. So we repositioned our digital mixers to target more of the studio, because we're probably one of the few who our digital mixers are at home in the studio and in live. And that's why we named them years ago Studio Live, and they truly are. So they can be used in the studio as control surfaces and interfaces as well. So many people bought our mixers for using it to record music, and they were more comfortable using a mixer. But it's still an interface. It has a USB on the back of the mixer. It goes into your computer and you can record. So anyway, our studio business, we could not produce interfaces fast enough. Our studio monitor business, oh my gosh, it exploded. Exploded. We couldn't build them fast enough. We're still catching up with the back orders in studio monitors. You know what it is? The pandemic has basically forced many, many people that wouldn't in a million years embrace technology. Musicians had to be forced to basically embrace technology because all their gigs were canceled. No more live gigs. So what are they going to do? They're going to live stream. This is incredible. There's a local musician here. He is probably one of the hardest working musicians I know. He's got a following in probably the 4 states that surround Louisiana. So like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, those states, he goes and plays gigs every single night. Not anymore. He has doing a couple of outdoor gigs. But anyway, I remember he lives in Baton Rouge. And he's like, hey man, he said, I'm kind of, what am I going to do here? I said, well, you should start live streaming. And okay, well, help me out with that. So long story short, he started live streaming. He set up a tip jar, and he was making a Friday night 1.5-hour set. He was making a couple of $1,000s.
Wow.
He averaged anywhere from about $1,000 to $2,000. So he was doing okay through the pandemic, considering, he'd go play some bar somewhere in Alabama and he'd make maybe $100. So and have to drive. So Okay, well, that's sustained. No, not really completely, but it will. Now it's here to stay. So in other words, people are used to consuming music that way now, and there's more opportunities to do that now. All of these new musicians that never embraced technology have been forced to use it. So your addressable market has just grown.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, for me personally, like as a sales guy, you can't get out. So that's my side of the podcast. Simon's reasons are different, but for me, it's a good way to talk technology and promote business during this time. But it's been fun, and start investing in gear and lights and cameras and stuff like this, and away we go.
Oh, you don't even want to know how much. My wife does not know how much I spent, but I got into camera equipment. So I have I bought 2 Sony, mirrorless cameras, and I have a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K behind me, and they're all rigged out. I had so much fun rigging them out. Now I just have to learn how to be a good
Yeah.
a videographer / filmmaker. I'm really lame. So
yeah, the video side of things, that's where like the cameras, the price, the difference is dramatic. You can really kill yourself with a microphone. It's anywhere from $100 to $500, but then the cameras, it's $100.
Well, no, that's become democratized too. No, I mean, seriously, I got to tell you something. I'll never forget when I was with Avid. It had to be this is as recent as probably 12 or 13 years ago. I remember when the Red cameras came out, everybody made a big deal about these cameras that can shoot major motion pictures. And the entry level price point was like 10 grand, and then you got to buy a lens. So for about $20,000, you can have a camera that can shoot a major motion picture. And I remember, because I worked for Avid, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. It's amazing how affordable that is. Yes, it's a lot of money. Okay, fast forward to today. I kid you not, I have a Pocket Cinema 6K that you can easily shoot a movie on. Well, actually, truth be told, you can shoot a movie on an iPhone. I don't know if you guys saw that Apple promotion they did for Chinese New Year last year. Did you see that movie short?
Missed it.
No, I didn't see it either.
You gotta just search Apple promotion Chinese New Year. It's a movie short that they shot on 100% on an iPhone 11,
Right.
and it's absolutely stunning. Now, don't get me wrong; it's all top actors and producers, but still, the quality is just staggering. But again, good lighting, good acting, good story. So, I mean, the technology is there. And now the new phone, you could shoot raw on the bloody things. And you could shoot in flat profile. So the point I'm trying to make is both audio and video have completely become, it's ubiquitous and it's democratized. Everybody has access to it. All you need to do is add talent, of course. But the reason why I'm bringing up video is because not only did all of these people that have to embrace technology, like you said, okay, yeah, I had to buy some cameras and web. Exactly my point. So anybody who was going out and thinking about, well, shoot, I have to, I have my band, I got a live stream now. Well, guess what? They bought a video equipment too to do their live streams. They're going to go out when they can start doing live gigs again. And I could guarantee you, a lot of them are going to bring their cameras with them and do live streams.
Absolutely.
I even said this to the band I play in, the guy Ricky. I mean, I bought this when the pandemic started. It's a video switcher. It's the A10 Mini. Yeah, the Blackmagic A10 Mini Pro.
Yeah. I was looking at that.
I could stream right from this. It's fantastic. So the point I'm trying to make is that now the market's changed. So you kind of have to, there are new opportunities and new ways to basically sell products and create products for the customer, because the customer was forced to evolve.
So I guess that kind of opens up a question: is there plans to start incorporating video mix into audio consoles? I mean, maybe that hasn't been thought of yet, but it seems like there would be a merger.
That would be a good idea.
All right. Something to work on. Good answer.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's what there was one of the business books I read. I think it was Blue Ocean Strategy. It said where technology merges, opportunity arises. So I'm paraphrasing it, and I read it a long time ago. But the point is, the pandemic is changing us forever. I mean, the way people consume and the way people actually, perform is going to change, and how they perform and what's important and the requirements they need is going to change. So, that's just the way it is, period. I think it's going to be a really, really long time before people will feel, well, you know what, I could be wrong. People are dying to kind of go and spend time with each other, but not everyone is neurotic like I am. So, I'm just happy that when I go over to Italy, that when I go see some of my, like my sister-in-law's husband, who's like a gigantic burly old guy with a giant beard, I don't have to kiss him on both cheeks. I'll say, hey, I'm not comfortable. Pandemic, That's the culture there, man. Dudes kiss each other. It's a macho thing.
Yeah. I remember going to a wedding in France once, and it's the tradition, you kiss, and then after a couple of days, I was like, okay, enough kissing, guys.
Enough kissing. Yeah. Oh, I don't mind so much from the standpoint of, okay, I could deal with that, but I'm always freaked out by, well, I'm going to catch their cold or their germs and all this other kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm ready for this to be over, but I'm also excited about what possibilities are going to come out on the back end as far as, business is concerned. Both for live and in the studio, for sure.
Yeah, no, I really agree. Like, just like, us with our podcast, but I've got some old DJ friends that started Twitch channels and stuff like this.
Oh yeah.
Playing 3-4 nights a week to all over the world where, I'm from Canada, the middle of nowhere. They'd be playing hard pressed to play for a couple hundred people on a Saturday. Now they're playing to, whatever. It really expands the promotion of the music, but also it offers a creative kind of look. People see what other people are doing more and more, and it just get inundated with ideas.
No, it's totally true. I mean, my hobby is music, and I play music, but specifically I love jazz music and I play jazz. Mm-hmm. So, I whenever I get a chance, not that often, I'll play a jazz gig here and there. But when I go over to Osaka, is where my wife is from, and it's usually where I spend a good amount of time. Well, I haven't this year, obviously, but I'll go play jazz with all my musician jazz friends in various clubs around the Kansai area. And a lot of those musicians, they are doing live streams, and then they actually changed the times of when they did the live streams, because a lot of folks were watching them on this side of the globe. Yeah. So they were having like Sunday morning a live stream jazz concerts with no people there, but because they wanted, it was Saturday night in the US and stuff. So they were finding, wow, this is kind of cool. We're getting, our tip jars are getting filled up a lot better, this way and stuff like that. So, or they'll do 2 shows and they're just, for the time difference and things like that. But again, to my point about, that's sort of a live sound. So what happens when the pandemic's over? I kind of meandered around, but I even said to the band I play with now for fun, but I even said to the guy, I mean, he makes money doing that, like extra money doing that. I said, man, you know what? Hook up some cameras and live stream the gigs, because a lot of the gigs are like weddings and parties. You have to get permission, of course, but you can say Saturday night I'm playing here, and then you could tell all the prospects that want to book your band for future events, just log in and watch the band do a real live gig. You don't have to come down. You don't have to do anything. You could just watch it. I mean, you could have, we have a guy doing lights. You could sit there with a video switcher and just switch between cameras, and man, you could have all kinds of stuff going on. And I mean, there's a whole nother opportunity to make another, money from that. So whether it be booking future gigs or even, tip jars, things like that. And even charging for the live stream too. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can offer. So,
yeah, is there a plug-in for any of these Zoom or whatnots for the tip jar? I know that there's separate companies. Yeah, is there?
They're a lot. Well, most of the streaming services like Twitch, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, they all have mechanisms for implementing a tip jar.
Yeah.
So you can go in there and it's linked to PayPal, et cetera. So all of that mechanism is definitely there. But yeah, I mean, crazy times. This is one hell of a year that I don't ever want to go back to, I'll tell you, and it's going to be in our history books, and our generations ahead of are going to be reading about it, no question about it. So
yeah, hopefully they remember the mistakes. It's
well, yeah, I don't even want to get into that at all. No political talk, please. I mean, I could tell you I'm happy about the outcome of that much. I'll say of the election. I mean, Zippy the chimp would have made me happy if he became the next president. So maybe you should cut that part out.
Yeah, we'll edit.
Anyway, but
super good inside baseball info, John. This is fantastic because I know nothing about the subject, so I'm just not interrupting.
No, and I'm sorry I kind of meandered around. I had like a kind of a early morning. Actually, I had an early morning meeting with China, and then part of the problem of working from home, you guys probably can relate to this, is that I don't really take any breaks when I work from home. Is that I literally just start my day, and sometimes I make the mistake of just sort of like rolling out at 6 a.m. and get on a call, and then I look up, and then it's my wife is nice enough to feed me, and she'll be bang on my door and like hand me something through the door, and I'll sit there and eat in front of the computer, and then I'll look up again and it'll be like 5 o'clock, and then I'll motor through to like 7:30. She goes, "Are you going to eat dinner? What are you going to cook out on the barbecue?" It's just every day's like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I kind of like the split shift. So we're up at 6 in Hong Kong. You work with the guys on the West Coast and New York till noon, and then do the Spanish siesta, and then up until 10 o'clock midnight here. So but you really get locked down into just working nonstop. But the ability to do Zoom, I mean, I've done just as many face-to-face over Zoom this year as I would, going into the factories in Shenzhen and Guangzhou or trade shows. So it's a new dynamic, but I think it's great. And like you say, people that normally wouldn't, not that I was one of them, but everybody's embracing technology. You even see office workers, and I'm sure you guys have sold a lot of gear into guys that just want a home little setup. I know Logitech sales are up about 60% on their unified communications this year.
But their consumer business is exponentially exploded.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's insane. Also, what was it? Amazon. I think they said, I read something that the incremental revenue Bezos made from the pandemic, in other words, above their forecast for 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because before they even predicted it, they said something along the lines of that excess that they didn't plan for or wasn't in their budget could pay every employee of Amazon all over the world $100,000.
Jesus.
Think about that. I mean, shit. I mean, as much as I don't want to spend my money and help local businesses and things like that, I mean, during the pandemic time, forget it. I mean, I absolutely bought everything from soap from Amazon.
Yeah.
It's also, and then, I have to say Walmart also struck back pretty hard. They do same day delivery. So, anyway.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, our business on Amazon went through the roof. I mean, it like out of control through the roof. Studio monitors, oh my gosh, it just went crazy. People were begging for them. I had musician friends that I haven't heard from in like 30 years that called me up begging me, saying, come on, man, can't you hook me up? Don't you have something? I know you could find an interface for me. I need an interface. I can't get one. Nobody has them in stock.
Right.
So, it's crazy. It's leveling off, and hopefully I've seen I mean, everybody overproduced, and now we're kind of back ending it, so they're kind of getting stocked up. But the demand is still pretty high.
Is it going to be a challenge to get more product? Has there been any hiccups there with China? I think there's a little bit of a
going on.
Yeah, a little bit of a dwell in March, February, March, but now they seem to be running full steam. I know a lot of my contacts there, like the mask season is over.
Yes,
so
that's
they're
right.
they're just back to business. So yeah.
Yeah, no, they're pretty much caught up. I mean, I know prices are going up, but I also think that sort of the demand artificially makes prices go up as well too. So, but I do think it's real, a reality of things getting more expensive in China. And then of course, the AKM fire, that was kind of like, I can't even believe this actually happened, really. So anyway, I think other companies got hit a lot harder, than we did. We recovered pretty quickly. Not all our products have AKM codecs in them, but the ones that did, we definitely had a stock of them. So, and we engineered some replacement parts. So anyway.
Yeah, I've heard that from some smaller little synth companies, had to redesign and find a new component to solve that issue.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many choices. That's the problem. I mean, especially in that category. I mean, you have TI and, you have Cirrus Logic, and there are a couple of other companies, and then some cheaper codecs, Chinese codecs and things like that. But yeah, we did okay with that. Other companies, yeah, it's tough. It came out of nowhere, really, so.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's, we kind of meandered around topics, as you say, but I think starting with some discussion on the signal processing and live, and then, I think it's appropriate to kind of end on the discussion regarding all the products and such that have been levitated by the pandemic. It's a weird thing, as something such a disaster has, there's a bright side to everything, I guess, is the moral of the story.
Well, you know what it is? I remember the consumption of music in the 80s, when there was a recession and the unemployment rate was high. I'm speaking of the US, and I think it followed suit in other parts of the world, but we weren't as globalized back then. But I remember that the music business, the old music business, the way it used to be, like record sales, CD sales, were through the roof, because if you were laid off from your job or you weren't making as much money as you would find sort of comfort in buying your favorite artist and listen to it. And it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. So that went through the roof, basically. I mean, honestly, these poor musicians, they had the stimulus check that came out, everybody went crazy and they started buying equipment. And then they started running out of money. So at that point, then you saw the sales start going down. But then on the back end of the outcome of the presidential, I'm speaking of the US, of course, then you saw, people's attitudes started feeling more confident about where things were going to end up, things like that. Then people started spending money again. So
yeah, maybe there needs to be an Amazon pawn for all the musicians.
I don't know. It's just so weird though, man. If then you look at the stock market, so it's just like none of it really makes sense.
No.
Yeah. And then Bitcoin. I mean, how do you? It's just don't get me started.
All right. Well, that's maybe that's a good place to cut it off for today.
Yeah. So I didn't buy any Bitcoin.
Right.
I'm too conservative for that.
Simon, you got any more questions before we?
No, really good to talk, John. Great info.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today, John. Anybody has any questions about Presonus or about podcasting, et cetera, please, hit your comments below and ask us questions. And we'll put all your social media links below if it's all right with you. I'll get in touch with you later, John, to get those.
Sure.
So yeah, thanks again. And have a great evening over there, and I'm sure we'll see you in 2021 sometime.
Oh yeah, I hope so. I look forward to it, man, in person.
Yeah.
Pick out a good restaurant.
Cheers, everybody.
Take care, guys. Take care, guys. Simon, good being you. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.